Don't know how to start it. Enter space.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
Isn't there an Apple TV for this one?
Is there an empty?
That's what I did for mine.
Is there an Apple TV?
It's
Okay,
like
yeah. So we were trying to think.
It's like IoT 30. It's not actually that one.
Okay, so if I unplug this.
Hey, Sean. The IoT Apple TV is actually this one, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay, so how do I do that?
Go to right up there. Go to, wait, it'll pop. I think it's just IoT Atrium.
IoT Atrium.
Yeah.
Enter play
It'll
code.
come up here. Second switch. Did you unplug it?
I unplugged this. Yeah, if you've got some way to change the input to that, then
It should switch automatically. Point it that way.
I'm looking for the, it doesn't have an input, just
You were on one, right?
yeah, that was HTML1. Yep.
There you go.
Okay,
1294.
Oh, it disappeared while I was.
sound.
283.
Sound.
299.
I don't know if it has sound.
It's for what? For his voice? So for the
Or
Hangout,
anything on its presentation.
Should be
so from the Hangout, it'll pick up your sound through
Right.
your own mic.
right. It should be sharing my.
But in the past, I used that. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be good. I can use the microphone as well. I'm just wondering if this is actually capturing my screen. Is it?
With Imran, you can help me do this.
It is? Oh, no, it's capturing me.
Turn off your video. Go to your Hangout.
Yeah, I'm in my Hangout. That's what I'm saying. I think I'll need to, like, rejoin my Hangout.
Maybe.
Like, yeah, reload. It's a good bet. Yeah.
Share screen.
Screen share. Okay.
All right.
I think we got it. Thank you so much. So, you want it's a Is this on or go ahead and well, it's not on, I don't think. You can turn it up so at least people can hear me. Hello. It's on, but it's not any volume. Anybody? Hello? Nope. Good. We're good. Is there any audio coming out? Nope. Nope. I can project it. That's fine. I mean, if it's not going to be easy. It's all good. Probably still kind of new to the whole situation here. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I'll. Trying to. It's okay. I mean, I'll just project. Yeah. Well, lesson for next time. Hello, everyone. The mic's not set up, so we're just gonna begin. Welcome to my talk on quicker tooling in Angular projects. Some of these concepts apply to any project with a front end using NPM or Yarn. If you've got a package.json, you can use some of these tools. Here's a quick overview of the things that I'll be going over. Husky, which is a pre-commit, pre-push tool, which hooks into Git. An Angular specific thing about ng build, testing in Jasmine/Karma. Some of those topics will be able to speed up tests across Angular, Vue, or React projects if you're using Jasmine or Karma. I'll also be going over Prettier, which is a special type of linter, and TSLint as well, which is connected to the ng-lint for Angular. There's also a section where I go over some more advanced tooling and how to dive a little bit deeper into diagnosing what tests are taking the longest, and some tools to help speed things up in general for your own tasks. So let's jump right into it. If you don't know about Husky, Husky is a pre-commit tool. And basically any Git hook tool. So if your project's hooked up with Git, on a push or a commit, it can run code. So this is really helpful if you want to run linters or tests before you actually commit or push your code. It's a good way to verify what you're pushing up is what you actually want in your repo. I've got a little bit of a demo here for that. So I've got a project over here with Husky set up. Here's this pre-commit hook over here. And on pre-commit, it's going to run a lint command. That lint command is defined in my package.json, so it's just going to run this. It will happen whenever I try to run a commit. So let me just make a quick change to something. I'll just add a space somewhere, save it. Let's make this a little bigger. Let's do git status to make sure we've got nothing to commit. Sure. Okay, cool. So we have a change here. We can get add src. Got a staged file, and I'm going to git commit. And voila, my Husky command is running ng-lint on my project. So this is a great tool because you can stop things being introduced that you don't want introduced into your project. It also saves time when things go to the pipeline and they fail because of linting or testing. You can also run tests or any other commands that you arbitrarily write in your pre-commit or pre-push hooks. There are several other hooks that can run as well. There's like pre-merge hook. There's a rebase hook. There's several other hooks, all documented in the NPM repo for Husky. So that's Husky in a nutshell. And I'm going to take some time just to take any questions that anyone has over Husky right now, just because we'll have some time because this presentation should be pretty short. So does anyone have any questions about Husky? You can need to mention the install. The install for that is npm install Husky or yarn add Husky. You can add it to your dev dependencies. You don't want to add that to your regular dependencies.
Obviously, you fail a test.
Absolutely. So Husky gives you, if you fail linter or if you fail tests, whatever you put in your pre-push, pre-commit handles, it will not let you push. You have to correct the items that have failed before that operation will actually work in Git. The way to disable that, though I don't recommend disabling it forcibly, you can do so. That is yeah, you can skip hooks. It's going to be this no verify hook. So you're going to have to add it to get to be like get whatever command -- no verify, and then Husky will not it will not run its pre-hook for that command. Any other questions about Husky? Cool. There's also some other Husky packages that I include in here. If you're running Husky commands, you know that your console kind of gets flooded with a bunch of stuff. So you can add some packages like Husky don't bark. And then Husky conf is another package that allows you to add additional configurations to Husky. So as I was saying, there are some things that are just specific to Angular. There are ways to speed up your build if you're just using it to check. A lot of the defaults on a build for Angular are very quick. So by default, AOT is not enabled. That actually speeds up builds if you keep that disabled. There's a bunch of flags that are for optimization of code after you want it to be deployed. So if you want to see the full list, Angular does have a full list of those commands. The only command that's on by default that slows down a build is source maps. And you only need source maps if you're going to be adding debugger statements or checking what packages have made it into your final build. So you can turn source maps off and gain about a 10% improvement in speed for literally like one additional argument to the build. I mean, Angular's documentation is great for checking out what things you can add. In my experience, there's only a few things that slow down the timing. The timing really only relies on if you're running things that are going to modify the whole package. So there's a configuration for AOT that's going to slow things down. Your build optimizer is going to slow things down. Cool. Wow. This is a lot better. Okay, cool. So we'll continue. Yeah, not a lot of these will slow anything down. The build optimizer will, lazy modules should not, named chunks should not. Optimization, kind of like a interesting name. It doesn't speed up your build, it slows it down, but it's for the code. You would want to run that when you're running a production build. By default, Angular does provide you with pretty good production setup. If you check out the app.module, or not the app module, angular.json. So by default, this is kind of like the configuration that's set up for a production run. Optimization will slow things down, but you probably want it on. Hashing basically breaks caching, so you probably want that on. Source maps you can disable, and they're by default disabled because you don't want to be letting out in production. They're disabled by default because you don't want to be letting out your source into the world. So a source map basically links the source file back to the code that's running, so you can actually see the real code that you wrote without the minification or obfuscation of your like minifier or parser running. AOT, all this stuff, this does not decrease performance. Vendor chunk doesn't decrease performance. Build optimizer does. service worker is fine to keep on. It doesn't decrease performance. That's all I have for ng build specific things. You can turn off source maps if you're running this for tests. They should be off if you're not debugging. You'll save at least 10%, sometimes more. It all just depends on how big your project is. Does anyone have any questions over the build task? No? Cool. I just had some few examples of what it looks like if you turn off source maps for testing. So this is a test without source maps. You get everything that you'd expect. You get like the line where the test failed, the spec file where it failed. And then this is one with source maps. There's a little bit, it's a little bit more verbose, but you're not going to see a huge readability improvement if you include source maps and you're looking at what failed. Source maps are kind of there if you're going to run a debugger statement and then debug your code manually. So you should probably not have source maps on. And actually, it's not recommended in the tutorials I've looked through to have source maps on when you're running for automated builds. So as I was saying, turn source maps off on your tests. You'll save 10% of your time. There's this really neat trick. I'm going to just demo this real quick. So this over here. Oh, great. That does not open in my... One sec. We should get a mic stand. That'd be good. Okay, cool. So, I can check out. So, if you run npm run tests. So this will launch my tests. I've thrown the time flag in front of the ng test that's running, so you'll see the total time. This is without any optimizations on a pretty small project. I just want to show you the time difference for adding some of these performance enhancing like pieces. Yeah, just give it a moment here. It'll run through some stuff. So I've got 88 tests, which is a pretty small amount of tests. But we're going to see that it still takes a while overall to run everything. On projects that I've been on in the past, we have over 1,700 tests in a single like section of our site. So as your projects get bigger, your tests are going to take longer. This means longer pipelines. It means pretty much longer everything, longer waiting times to get things approved. So we're at 47 seconds with like a really minimal testing thing going on here, just a regular ng test running. If we turn source maps off, we're going to save about 10%. So if I check out and run the same thing, we are at 47 seconds with 1 minute and 8 seconds of user time, which is just CPU time. Spent outside of the kernel, and then system time is CPU time spent inside the kernel. So this is just with source maps off. And since I'm not running any debugger statements, I don't really care about like debugging my code. I don't need source maps. This could be sitting on your CI pipeline without source maps. You're not going to notice a difference in that, but you will get a small performance enhancement for literally adding one argument. So this should be, yep, 38 seconds. So I just saved about 10 seconds by adding no source map, or source maps equals false on this 47 second test. I also saved some time off of the user time and some time off of system calls. That might not look like much, but it actually adds up when you're talking about a server that might have 1 or 2 cores that's running multiple things. And now, not only that, but this benefit compounds into that this server can now be freed up to run tests on other like processes. So whatever is coming in, now it has more time to run that. And so that's just with the source maps. Now we can go a step further than source maps. Angular and testbed has this problem where the modules that are compiled for testbed are not reused. So there's kind of like a hack for this, and this is the code for that hack. I can share that later. You can email me later to get this code. I can give you the issue where people have brought it up. Basically what's going on here is we're saving off of our old testbed module like setup, and then we're just reusing it every test. And this gives us a huge performance increase. We're talking like, I've seen like 50% increases in performance just by running this. You'll see that the slow tests that tick by in the browser will just fly by. It's really incredible. I'll just demo that for you now. Let's see. Make sure that this is the code I want to be running. Okay. Cool. Okay, so now this is the one where we've added the testbed reset code just around the modules and imports that we provide. And we'll see how long that takes. This is also with source maps equal to false. So again, saving those 10 seconds there. But you'll see when the browser launches here, you'll notice that these tests that were taking a long time between each test are going to start to zip along once like one loads. So you'll start to see it. There we go, right like that. And so now I've got our test down to 20 seconds in real time, 33 seconds in user time, and 3 seconds in system time. The reason that user time is bigger is because this starts to split across multiple cores. So in the real world, we only experienced 20 seconds, but really the computer was able to use 2 cores, one for like 20 seconds, one for 13 seconds. And so we've saved even more time by running this optimization. You do have to add this to all of your tests manually, but when you look at the performance improvements that you can get for virtually no work, it starts to stack up pretty quick, especially when you're talking about saving 7 minutes per build. On my last project, we had builds that were in excess of 23 minutes. And we were able to bring those build times just the testing time was in excess of 23 minutes. And we were able to bring that down to about 6 minutes, which is a significant improvement. And so going a little bit further than that, there's one more enhancement that you can make. And this enhancement you can add to your karma.js.conf. Now, everything's been running in the browser up until now. You know that the Chrome browser pops up and it shows all the tests running, but that's not really useful because if there's an error, it'll log it to the console anyway, and it'll give me a description of what went wrong and where. So I don't need the Chrome browser to show me that. There's a way to disable Chrome from popping up. You can use a flag like this. So in browsers, you can say you're going to run your custom Chrome. And Chrome headless is one of the options you can provide. So you could just write Chrome headless in browsers if you wanted. But you can also provide some additional flags if you want to turn off security to try to get some additional performance improvements. This is the configuration I run. So I'll do git branch again, and I'm going to check out this one. So git checkout. Now I can run test again. So you'll notice that these 2 times, 20 seconds, 33, and 3, what we're looking to do is just decrease the amount of load on the server. So there won't be too much of a performance improvement in terms of real time spent, but user time or the CPU time total will be a little less because we don't need to spin up a Chrome window. So I should probably time that. Also running with source maps false. And so there you go. We save another second off of system time. We save 10 seconds or 13 seconds off of user time, and the real time stays about the same. But remember, this is load that is still placed on the server. If you have a single core on your server, then the real and user time are going to be very, very similar, if not exactly the same. Or it might be user plus system equals real, pretty sure. So, so those are the 3 performance enhancements that you can do for Karma. The testbed one only works for testbed with Angular. Source maps only works with Angular. This Chrome headless thing, this will work with any anything that's using a Karma runner. So if you want to use Chrome headless, you'll save a little bit of time, and it's no code really to add. And then if this is running on a pipeline server, you should probably be running it headless anyway. Okay, so on to the end. Does anyone have any questions about that? Go ahead.
Yeah, going back to the testing module, is there any reason that you know of that or drawbacks?
So the reasons that they don't use it right now, there's a feature request out. So here's the feature request to fix the testbed performance issue. Apparently, it's not on their priority list, but they do know about it. This was something that took me a long time to find. Drawbacks, yes. So if you have not implemented it from the get-go, you're going to have to edit a lot of code. It's fairly simple to edit, but there's also instances where it can break your tests. When you're using services that need to be reset in a specific way, or you need to consider things that might have a more global state or scope, it might not work for you all the time. So it's more so that if you know that you have tests that don't have a global scope thing, or particular tests are running really slow, then you should probably consider adding this. On my last project, there was a suite of tests in one component that ran, and it took 46 seconds. It's even if I wanted to X describe or F describe on that, it would take 46 seconds just to run the test that I'm trying to test. So you add it to things that are high impact, and you get your time back, and it took 7 seconds to run after the speed increase. So, but great question.
A couple of questions regarding both of those. In that post, they have that NG bullet. Have you tried NG bullet yet? That package for payments?
NG bullet for this? I have not.
It's in the bottom left. Red there.
Oh, this?
Yeah.
When was that added?
I've tried it. Here's how it works. But, yeah, then the other thing, what you just said too about F describe. So this performance improvement, this does help with just single tests too. It's used to me is I'm just trying to test a couple tests and whatever.
So if you're trying to do a single unit test, the F describe won't help you with this performance enhancement. So this only helps if you're doing multiple tests in a module, or in a testing module. So if you're going to run a lot of tests in one specific file, 10 or more, 20 or more, 30 or more, then you might want to consider adding something like this. You can add it across your entire project in one fell swoop. That's pretty easy to do, and then just deal with the errors as you encounter them. However, it does not have any effect for single tests, test files. So you won't see any performance enhancement there. But source maps, definitely. If you run source maps, that speeds up the initial time to get the modules built so you can run it. But debugging wise, that also removes some of your debugging features. Like if you throw a debugger in there, you might not land where you expect. But in general, this is fine to use if you're just using it to verify on a like CI pipeline. All great questions though. Some more stuff about Chrome headless. There's tons of flags that you can set on that. Source maps false. Great. Okay, so there's also this thing about if you turn source maps off, you might find that your tests start to fail. This is because of an interaction with Karma and Zone.js. I have not, for the life of me, been able to find out exactly what causes that error. Though I've noticed it in prior projects, and my suspicions are confirmed by other people having written that, like, yeah, this happens. And then if you are subscribed to Pluralsight, in the Angular testing unit, they talk about this issue, and the host tells you, turn off source maps. Just because you might be failing tests, you might be passing tests, not because you're actually passing, but because of a conflict between Zone.js and Karma. There's one more performance enhancement for testing. You can actually run tests in parallel. Karma provides, or there's a package for Karma that you can force to run tests in parallel. This really only helps if you've got more than one CPU on the machine you're trying to run it on, but it provides a pretty good performance enhancement nonetheless on really large projects. So I can show you that too. So we're at 20 and 2020. So we're not going to get a huge performance enhancement because I've already added a ton to this, and getting it under this is going to be hard to do. All right, so this one, what happened? Error in the config file. That shouldn't happen. Could not find, probably. I just missed an npm install there. Okay, so now this is running across two shared browsers. I've disabled the Chrome windows from popping up using the headless Chrome. So what it does is it splits up the work across two different browsers, and it runs them in parallel. This saves you a little bit of time, but it's immediate, and you don't need to do anything else. So you can see it was a little bit slower in total time. So this is the actual total time. This is, I guess I had time running on the actual test command, but this is the total time. So it runs up the time a little bit, but that's only because this isn't a significant amount of tests. The more tests that you have, the more of a benefit you'll see. If you don't want to go through the lengths of fixing your test beds, you might want to look into doing parallel testing instead. If one of these executions fails, it will still fail on your pipeline, so you should be good on that front. Let's just, one more thing I wanted to show you is on that. If you only wanted to make that parallel change, you would get a performance enhancement pretty quickly. It's really easy to add too, so let me show you that. Time on upgrade. So this is running with only the parallel options enabled. There are no other performance enhancements enabled. So remember, our original runtime was 47 seconds. I guess this is running headless as well, so that's a small performance improvement. But but it was originally 47 seconds. And this is just by turning on a flag. It's going to be running on your CI pipeline anyway. Might as well just make it parallel. 39 seconds. So save, another 8 seconds, at least on this set, for free. It's just a package you install and run. So a way to shave seconds off. This is a relatively small test. I don't know how long other people's tests are in their projects, but as I was saying, the ones that I've been on, they get up there pretty quick. So you can choose how many executors you have. If your pipeline system only has like 2 cores, then it's not worth putting more than you have. There are 2 styles that you can use for the system to break up the tests: round robin and description lengths. I believe round robin just goes every other test or every other test module. It will split it up between the 2 runners or however many executors you have, and then description length splits it up by description lengths. And yeah, that's parallel testing in a nutshell. Okay, does anyone have any questions about parallel testing or any of the other testing stuff I mentioned?
Or is it that tests that we're passing before that it should actually?
The test shouldn't actually be passing.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a much worse problem where you expect that you've written something correct when in fact your tests do nothing. So yeah, if you turn source maps off and you notice your tests suddenly start breaking, you might want to look into that, because in the real life environment of prod, source maps are not on typically ever. So want to look out for that.
Okay, so they were all.
Yeah. So, all right. There's not much left to go over. There's 2 more things, Prettier and linting. Prettier you can add to any project. There are several packages that you can add for Prettier, the main package of which is Prettier itself. Prettier is a code styling tool, very much like a linter, but they're very opinionated on what they want you to be able to change. So their default setup is on their website, and you can change a few things, but it's not like a full linter. This is just for like white space, semicolon, tax quotes, trailing commas, bracket spacing, JS brackets, arrow functions. There's nothing like strong typing or anything like that included with Prettier. But that being said, this is a really good tool to keep your code consistent and looking really nice. And it's pretty quick. So I'll show you that package. Prettier was on my last project, and I noticed that it took a pretty darn long time to run, so it wasn't so great. I run this. Okay, I think this has Prettier. One sec. No. All right. All right, well, that's odd. I don't see where I have Prettier installed, but that's okay. I can just install it really quick. So as I was saying, Prettier is a package that allows you to run certain styling guides across your repo. So one thing right here. Does that work? Kind of. Yeah, all right, well. Seem to have lost my configuration for Prettier. Okay, well, guess we'll just go over the docs. You can, there's a few ways you can run Prettier. The first way is to just run it by default. The problem with running it by default is it checks through all the files, and this takes a really long time. If you want to run it quicker, you should run it with lint staged, which I'll get back to later. But there's another tool called Pretty Quick, which runs only on, you can tell it to run only on staged files. And another one that runs on precise commits, which is a tool that will literally just look at the lines edited in a commit and change the lines. So it's incredibly quick. On my last project, we had Prettier installed. It took about like 55 seconds to run on the entire project repo. And 55 seconds is a lot of time when you have to run it before committing your code. So that was pretty unacceptable. So I looked into ways to speed that up, and I ended up going with precise commits, but I don't think I would really recommend precise commits just because I know there are better options now. The options that I would recommend, in fact, I would just exclusively recommend this first option, which is lint staged. And there's reasons for that because after you run your Prettier command, so we have Prettier write as this command right here, we can also tell it to add those files back that it edited. So if you wanted to have a Husky command that on pre-commit runs your lint staged command, and your lint staged command, runs your linter and then re-adds the files that it linted, this is a really good way to do that. And not only that, but it's really quick because it only runs on the files that were staged. So that means what you staged gets fixed, and then you can push it. So this is a really quick way to do that. I'm sorry that I don't have the demo for that because I totally wrote the demo. Give me 1 sec while I check if it's on any other branch. Okay, I found it. So not where I thought it was. Okay, so if I run Prettier over this entire set of files, it's going to take some time. Okay, I'm run. Which did I know this time? So it only took 2 seconds to run over all these files, which is not terrible. But if you wanted to do like, if you only want to run it on the things that are staged, there are no staged files, so it takes no time. This is really easy to set up. For the lint staged part, you can also add your default linters. So this is where it comes into play for projects that are like Vue.js or React. You can use this lint staged package to have your linters run before you commit. And you get this performance enhancement with TSLint, which allows files to be passed to it. So this runs really, really quick instead of running TSLint on the entire project, which if you run nglint, it takes forever. Like if I just run time ng, it takes a pretty long time on the project. And the larger your project gets, the longer this will take. So it's really great to just be able to lint the files that you're checking, because linters don't exactly take that long. Great, we found some linting errors, but it took a long time, which we can eliminate all of that time. So, yep. Yeah, as I was saying with the linter, you can add TSLint to your linters and lint staged and gain your performance improvements there. And then hook this all up to Husky, and you've got basically a build system before you even commit to the CI. Does anyone have any questions over linters or Prettier? Nope. Cool. Next part. So there's 2 other things that I've seen in code that are, well, one thing that I've seen in code that's pretty bad. It's the use of the and operator. So the and operator is a synchronous operator. That means the first command that you provide needs to finish, then it'll run the second command, then it'll run the third command. And I see this all the time in this demo project. I have an example of that. We have, here you go. So here's the regular CI and the CI quick. So if you use the and, your CI is going to be running and waiting for the first process to finish before it can start the second process. There's no reason that your lint needs to, or your tests need to run for your lint, or need to wait for your lint to pass. And there's no reason that your build needs to wait for your lint to pass and your tests to pass. You can run them all in parallel. And one way to achieve that is by installing this package, npm run all, and that just gives you a quick way to, all you need to put is run p, and then give it the arguments of the script you want to use, spaced apart, and that'll run everything in parallel all at the same time. If one thing fails, the whole thing fails. So that's a really good way to manage that. You're not wasting time when you run it with the run p command. I can demo that real quick because the performance improvement adds up. So CI. So you can see that this is going to take a while because it needs to run the lint, and then it's going to need to run the tests. We'll go back over to this. So you're going to want to use this run p command. npm run all is the package that you can save to your dev environment to get that. And yeah, that's still running. Again, it's all synchronous, so this is really, really slow. I'm going to stop it, in fact, because we don't really have much time left. I run the quick command, you'll notice it immediately fires all of the things to start going at once. We're already building our tests and the production build. So that's all fired off. The output's kind of ugly, but it gets things done really quickly. So that's super nice. Got 2 more things to go over. Yes, this is going to finish the tests rather quick. And, well, all right, some of the tests, finishing up the build. And we get stuck there for a minute. But it's just a much better way to run things in parallel. A lot of people don't know that the and is a synchronous operator. They think that like lets you run the 2 commands at once when it doesn't. Okay. So there's one more thing that I'd recommend if you're looking into diagnosing your slowest tests or your tests in general, and that's this more utils. Which if you're running on a Mac, you can just run brew install more utils. And that gives you this utility that basically timestamps every output if you want. So you can run your command and then pipe it to this TS function, which is timestamp. This is almost done. I did not optimize this, but running in parallel is a much better way to do it. Let me just demo the npm run test with TS. So say you've got tests taking a long time, you want to know which ones are taking the longest. Yes. Now next to every single output by the script, I will get a timestamp, which is super helpful if you're looking into what's taking the longest. So maybe your modules are taking the longest time to build.